on the big interview of the day. I look forward to this interview every other month because the Iowa History Journal publishes every other month, and the current issue, April, is on the newsstands, probably the most convenient place to pick it up. If you don't have your subscription yet, is at Hy-Vee. Michael Swanger is the editor and publisher and contributor. Michael, good to talk to you again.
Great to talk with you again, George. Thanks for having me back on your show.
Your cover story is about Iowans who played a critical role in the Civil War. In fact, they fought in one of the, we always think of the Battle of Gettysburg as being one of the biggest battles. The other big one was down there in Shiloh in Tennessee.
It really was. The Battle of Shiloh was really the first major battle during the Civil War, George. And as you know, no state per capita mustered more men to fight in the American Civil War than did Iowa. And what's more, they participated in some of the war's most bloody conflicts, including the Battle of Shiloh, which was fought on April 6th through the 7th in 1862 in an area located between a small church named Shiloh and Pittsburgh Landing on the Tennessee River. What really stands out about this story, George, which was written by Don Doxey, is that more than 6,600 Iowa troops, which was the largest concentration of Iowa soldiers to fight in any battle in any war, fought in the Battle of Shiloh, and more than one-third of them were killed, wounded, or missing when it was over. And Shiloh really was a battle that altered the way in which the nation viewed the Civil War, because more than 23,000 men from Union and Confederate armies were killed, wounded, or missing, accounting for more casualties than had been incurred in all previous American wars combined. And soldiers from Iowa were a very big part of it.
What motivated Iowans to fight?
Well, I think the big thing was our Governor Kirkwood's relationship with the president at the time, obviously President Lincoln, when he called for volunteers. Iowa not only was quick to muster men, but was also very, played a big role in terms of supplying the military with equipment. So I think there was just a sense of patriotic duty there, and I think a rapport there that the governor had with the president played a big part in it as well.
Michael, whenever I visit the State House down there in Des Moines, I walk around with my mouth gaping open, but and there are so many things to be in awe of, but one of them is all of those Civil War flags carried by Iowans behind glass down there in the rotunda.
It's a really nice display, isn't it? You know, and that's one of the displays that's still on exhibit. They have a few standing displays, and just recently, as you may know, the State Historical Museum of Iowa reopened following about a 5-year renovation project that was cost about $13 million, and that's one of the displays that you can go down and see yourself for free. I would encourage Iowans to do so.
When I was a kid in 6th grade and we toured the state capitol, we were told that when those flags would fall off of their poles and hit the floor, they were burned. Think about all of the history that was lost there before they preserved those flags for posterity.
Yeah, it's really sad to think about it that way, George. When I don't think it's probably like anything else. We don't think about things at the time that we're doing it. We don't think about preserving things for historic value. But that's a great example of some things that I wish were saved.
Talking to Michael Swanger here from Iowa History Journal. Another of your cover stories here that jumped out at me, Michael, because my father-in-law was from Van Meter, Iowa, and I have heard 100 times about the heater from Van Meter, Bob Feller.
Well, you know, as spring training is underway, as you know, George, and so I'd be remiss if we didn't touch on baseball with our current issue in the spring. And, of course, everyone knows about Bob Feller. I don't know how many people realize that Bullet Bob threw the first opening day no-hitter in April 16th of 1940 in Chicago against my beloved White Sox, and there on the south side at Old Comiskey Park. But, yeah, it was one of the first great feats of his legendary career, which, as everyone knows, he went on to become a Hall of Famer. He didn't have his best stuff that day. It was a cold, blustery day. His curveball wasn't working, but his fastball, his legendary fastball, certainly was. And even though it wasn't his best outing, it was still good enough to throw a no-hitter. And for many, many years, it stood as the only opening day no-hitter. So a pretty amazing accomplishment.
Have you ever seen that video of Bob Feller on the CBS Sunday morning program?
Yes.
Where he is actually, they took him back to the farm where he grew up, and he's standing there throwing that baseball up against the side of the barn. Just amazing footage. The barn was still there.
The barn was still there, and his arm was still there.
We've got a local angle here in the Iowa History Journal this month. I've never heard of this guy. There was actually a farm advice columnist back during the Great Depression, before everybody had a radio, that hails from Pocahontas County.
Yeah, well, you're talking about Fred Ferguson, and Fred and his wife, Bess Ferguson, met at Iowa State, but Fred Elmo Ferguson actually was his full name. He was born on a farm near Lawrence in Pocahontas County on April 16th, 1898. Grew up there working on his family's farm, and he at a young age had an affinity for science and writing and agriculture, and he attended Iowa State. After he graduated from high school there, he went to Iowa State. It was known as Iowa State College at the time in 1915. And there he met another fellow Iowan, Bess, from Nevada, and she had similar interests, and they eventually married while they were students there. Both had an interest in science and journalism. Both got their degrees in those fields. Fred focused on agriculture, and Bess focused on home economics, and they made a living writing columns for various publications across the nation during the Great Depression to advise rural folks on how to get through those tough times. And Bess was the first editor of the Iowa Homemaker, which was a publication that Iowa State launched in 1921.
Iowa History Journal is out for March and April. I'm looking at the front page here. The copies are $4.99. How can you afford to put that magazine out at that price, Michael? Do you have some corporate sponsors that help out?
Well, we have advertisers, which obviously play a big role in our business model. We're a small family-owned business, and of course, our subscribers are a big part of our business model, so they help keep us afloat. I know when you look at the cost of magazines on the newsstand, we're quite affordable, and I think it's one of the attractions to IHJ, and I also hear from a lot of readers who say they like the amount of content that they get, because even though we're not the thickest magazine, we probably have as much content in our every issue as we do for compared to magazines that are maybe 2 or 3 times bigger. So we focus on the stories and the storytelling, and if we don't go deep, we feel no one else will. So that's part of what we do.
I encourage subscriptions to keep them in business here. This is one of those magazines where, Michael, I'll read the article and I might go back and read it 2 or 3 times. Again, that's how enjoyable it is. I always learn something. Michael Swanger, Iowa History Journal. We'll talk to you in 2 months.
Looking forward to it. Thank you, Joyce.